The genocide against the Tutsis is one of the most horrifying crimes against humanity. Between April and July of 1994, it's estimated that over 1 million people were killed in Rwanda. Eric Murangwa Eugene is a survivor of the genocide against the Tutsi, a former footballer for the Rwanda international team, and the founder of the Ishami Foundation, an organization that works to connect people through sport and storytelling in Rwanda and the United Kingdom. This October marks Black History Month. Together, we celebrate and educate about Black history, heritage, and culture as part of understanding racism and standing in solidarity against it together. Today, we're going to talk to Eric about his experience of being Black in the United Kingdom, how being a genocide survivor frames his experience, and how we can work together to build stronger and more cohesive communities. For Remembering Srebrenica, my name is Arnesta Bulyushmich-Kustura, and I would like to welcome Eric today. Hi, Eric.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I would like to hear a little bit about your experience as a genocide survivor from Rwanda.
My story of how I survived the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, it's more about how sport and football in particular played a part in my survival journey. In 1994, I was a football player, playing for the biggest football club in Rwanda, called Rayon Sport. And thanks to my, football status, I received different helps from different people, mainly teammates and fans, who basically helped me to go through a very, very difficult journey, and that I eventually survived from. I was living in capital city in Kigali when the genocide started, and on the first day of genocide, April 7th, late or early in the afternoon, my place where I was living with another colleague, a friend of mine, was attacked, as were many other places at the time, by soldiers. And then these soldiers came into the house, and they were pretending to look for weapons that they were saying we had, as they were throwing things up and down and threatening us in a different way and beating us. Something happened in the process. A photo album fell on the floor wide open, and it caught the attention of one of the soldiers. And when the soldiers looked at the pictures that were in the album, he recognized me through those pictures. And he happened to be a fan of my football club. That unbelievable scene basically became the reason why my life and the life of my housemate was spared in that moment. And when we left that flat of ours, the next day we went and stayed with a group of teammates who were not among the people who were being targeted at the time. They allowed us to stay with them, and they also went out of their way to provide us support, some sort of protection, and went out to look for food because we could not go out. They went out to look for information that helped us to manage to deal with a very difficult situation at the time. And at some point, they even paid money to rescue me from the hands of militia. When things went out of court to the point where they could no longer provide the help they were giving me. They advised me to go and seek refuge to um, someone who was a very important member of the militian group, but who also was known as a very big fan of my football club. So they accompanied me to this man's house, who lived about a mile away from where we were. And this man also agreed to take me in. I stayed with him for a couple of days, probably a week or so, and eventually agreed to drive me to International Red Cross headquarters, which was in downtown Kigali. From there, I spent, I think, another 2-3 days, and the director of International Red Cross in Rwanda arranged for me and another 2 gentlemen who had also come to seek refuge at that place to be transported to the Hotel Mille Collines. Hotel Mille Collines is a place that came very known through the film called Hotel Rwanda that came out in 2004, 2005. So I stayed in Hotel Mille Collines with other 1,200 plus people, and we were eventually taken to the RPF. RPF was the Rwandan Patriotic Army that was fighting against the regime that was carrying the genocide at the time. So they had captured quite a big part of the city, and the US peacekeepers who had remained in Rwanda after the cancellation of the peacekeeping mission that had come to Rwanda prior to the genocide. They basically arranged what you would term in war terms as prisoner exchange. So there were people who were caught up on the RPF control zone who wanted to come to the Rwandan government side, and us who were at the Mille Collines who wanted to go to the RPF control zone. And that's how I was taken to that side of the city with other people who were staying with me at the Mille Collines and eventually survived the genocide. So in the process, though I survived, I lost so much. I lost quite a number of my family. Over 85 family members from both sides, my dad and my mom, were killed during the 100 days of genocide. And among them, there was the youngest member of my family, a brother who was only 7 years at the time. So yeah, that's how I can summarize my journey of survival.
I know that it's not often easy to relive those horrific experiences, and I'm so deeply sorry for the loss and the trauma that you endured. So
thank you
so much. Now, in 1997, you were able to come to the United Kingdom as a refugee.
Yes.
And this was after you went through the horrific ordeal of surviving genocide and losing so many members of your family. Now, in the United Kingdom, obviously the life is very different, circumstances are very different. How has your adjustment to life here been? You know, as a genocide survivor, as an ethnic minority, really, what sort of challenges and experiences have you faced?
Well, my 23 years now, I think, journey in the UK and in London in particular, because I've always lived in London. Yeah, it was a very challenging journey, like many other migrant refugees who go to foreign countries. Um, when I came over, I was still a young man. I didn't really know much about anything other than what I had known in my country. Obviously, I had just uh, survived such a horrific, terrible experience of genocide. Um, and yeah, I was looking to go somewhere where I would uh, find a different kind of life and find some assurance for future, because of my country had just been completely, you know, decimated. We had just lost over 1 million people in just 100 days. Uh, Many other millions were either scattered across the country in a different part of the country without the their normal family supports. Uh, Many other millions had fled the country and they were living in refugee camps in the neighboring countries. So it was a terrible place to be. And when I came to UK, yeah, I was looking something different, something that would give me a little bit of hope for future. Um, I have to say, when I arrived, I was received well because I didn't experience uh, any kind of discrimination as such, uh, but I was also uh, a strange person in this new environment. Couldn't speak a word of English when I when I arrived in '97. You come and adapt to a new uh, environment, weather-wise, culture-wise, language-wise. So it was very challenging. Um, but it was even more challenging because nobody knew what I had uh, just, you know, uh, experienced. Uh, Being the authorities that you know I had to deal with in my first few years through, you know, asylum seeking processes and neighbors or people who I met in school or whatever. Nobody knew who I was, and I don't think nobody uh, would have cared much even if they knew who I was. Um, that also was a challenge, uh, but I think I was also determined to not allow anything to get in my way or make me feel sore about the situation that I might be facing at the time. So I tried to adapt it to a new life. I tried to learn the language, uh, and slowly, yeah, I came to adapt to the new life in London, and yeah, and here we are, 20-something years later. Um, I call London pretty much my home as much as I call Rwanda my home. So sometimes it's a bit confusing to 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 get the wording correct. So when I leave London going back home to Rwanda, I say I'm going home. When I leave Kigali going back to London, I say I'm going back home. So that's the kind of life you adapt to
Yeah,
when you live this so many years in two different places that are very dear to you.
definitely have a sort of similar sentiment.
Mm.
I was a refugee from Bosnia to the USA, and now I'm in the UK. And so for me, London is home, but so is Sarajevo, and so is America. So it's the
Well,
split. You're all over.
use it's even more complicated
Yes.
than you free homes.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. But
Mm,
that journey of, being a refugee and moving into this new place and
mm,
navigating an area where the people around you don't really know the pain and the tragedy and the trauma that you went through, is quite isolating, I would say. Just from my own personal experience, from everything that you're saying, as well as from speaking to other genocide survivors. We have made a lot of progress in learning about different genocides, about what happened in Bosnia, what happened in Rwanda, Cambodia, Sudan, other places, which is really good. But you are somebody that works in genocide education as well,
mm,
and I do follow your work very closely.
indeed.
What progress do you think we need to make in educating on the genocide in Rwanda and sort of raising that awareness so that people do have a better understanding of it?
Before answering your question, I wanted to uh, talk a little bit more about the point you made in how uh, most of the survivors of genocide that you've spoken to have always highlighted this issue of feelings of isolation, whenever they go to live into this in this the different countries. uh, it's true. Very few people understand what being a survivor of genocide is. Um, this is from pretty much across the board. It's from the general public to the authorities, to some extent to even those who supposed to be the experts in terms of dealing with this type of people. In countries such as the UK or USA and others, they have all these things in place that they they can provide for people who have suffered from different kind of tragedies. Those with the responsibility to look after survivors of genocide, uh, that they need to do more. They need to understand who survivors of genocide are, and then to be able to provide the support they need. Uh, in terms of what need to be done, generally speaking, to what people need to learn from the experiences of uh, survivors of genocide. Uh, I think people, first and foremost, they need to understand that genocide is not an issue that takes place in some isolated uh, part of the world. Genocide is not something just happens because of a backward uh, society or community. Genocide, it happens mainly because of bad politics. And bad politics takes place everywhere. So people, if they can understand that, maybe they can understand a little bit more about us who have already suffered from that terrible thing, and therefore do more to stop it happening again, and more importantly, do more to stop it happening to them, because it can easily happen to anyone. Uh, Genocide, it starts with small issues of prejudice and discrimination and hate, and we know that these are things that happens in every society. But when they mix with bad politics, that's when they create genocide. So people can stop it if they are more aware of that. The reason why genocide have continued to happen in different parts of the world, especially outside, you know, the, the West world, uh, is because many, generally speaking, people have naively thought this is not something concern them. You know, it happened to them those years ago, 70+ years ago, because they believe that their society was not as sophisticated and more modern as it is today, and they think it can't happen today to them. But that's completely wrong. It can easily happen, especially if they continue to treat it like they have done in the last, you know, uh, 70+ years. So yeah, that's what I personally think need to be done. We need to do more to help people understand that when we talk about what happened in Rwanda, what happened in Bosnia, what happened in Cambodia, in Darfur, or what is happening in Myanmar or in any other places, it's not just about telling them the history. It's not about teaching a lesson of history. It's also about learning the lessons of what need to be done today and tomorrow. So if we can do that, hopefully, yeah, people will be more equipped with understanding and knowledge to combat future conflicts that can escalate into genocide.
Thank you so much for that extremely informative answer. As I'm sure you're aware of, despite the fact that, as you mentioned, the Holocaust happened 75 years ago, Bosnia and Rwanda some 20 years ago now, 25. There's still ongoing conflicts throughout the world that is resulting in genocide. But I think even when we look at our own current communities, whether anywhere in the West, but particularly, for example, in the United Kingdom, we are seeing, a rise in hate crimes against people of a different religion, a different race, targeted because of whatever their identity may be. And obviously, as a genocide survivor myself, that's always quite frightening because, as you said yourself, genocide doesn't happen suddenly. It doesn't happen overnight. It always starts slowly. It starts with words. It starts with politicians targeting people and antagonizing a group and marginalizing them, really. When you're looking at the United Kingdom today, as a genocide survivor from Rwanda, what thing would you really like to make clear to the public in the United Kingdom? What lesson do you think that the United Kingdom needs to take away from your experience as a genocide survivor?
Well, I think I've already said it. There is no genocide without bad politics. Every genocide that has taken place in this world, you will realize it came because of how the politics of that place played a part in allowing what may have been there as part of everyday differences between the people of that society, then was taken advantage for political reasons. And today in the UK, my concern, my worries is that there's issues that have now become more politicized, and issues concerning the way of life for people and different communities. So that's a very dangerous change in the way UK politics are. When I arrived in the UK 23 years ago, it was almost impossible to hear a politician talking publicly about a particular group of people, calling them names, blaming them for this or that. Today, it's part of everyday politics, and to me that's very, very worrying, because it exactly reminds me what I experienced 20, 30 years ago in my country, Rwanda. In Rwanda, the issue of people, Hutu and Tutsis, was there for a long time, but it was not as politicized as it became in later years. And when you go to a point where the politicians saw that issue as a way of playing their politics, that obviously became the reason why we ended up having the genocide. So I hope and I urge people in the UK to try and leave the politics of division out of a political arena, because they don't lead to anything good. And when they got to that point of exploding, you don't know who's gonna be safe for that mess. It can easily affect each and everyone, even those who didn't think they could be affected.
Yeah.
Those who thought that what is happening or what was going on, it does not concern them. When you get to that point where things get out of control, you are all marked people, so you can easily be affected in one way or another. Obviously, there will always be the target group who will be affected even more, but even those who didn't think they were concerned about the issues that were going on, they were indifferent in one way or another to what was happening. My message to them is, when it get out of control, you are all in it.
Those are Very, very important warnings, I think. And I certainly hope that our audiences and everybody who hopefully watches this interview will take heed and listen to your advice. Now, your organization, the Ashami Foundation, you created it specifically really to connect people through sport, through storytelling, to bring attention to the genocide in Rwanda. And in the UK, we have, quite a lot of really great organizations that work to tackle hatred, to sort of bring communities together, which in this day and age is becoming more and more important. I wanted to sort of get your perspective on what do you believe is the next step forward? How do we build more cohesive communities together? What can we learn from one another to get to that point where we're really standing in solidarity? We are combating, whether it's genocide, denialism, racism, nationalism, Islamophobia, whatever it may be. How do we get to that point?
You're right. There's so many great organizations in the UK that have done unbelievably good work to help people learn about what happened in all these communities and countries that have been affected. But I think there is still a lot, much more to be done. Because as I said earlier, as much as so much has been done, there is still a lack of a good understanding of what these organizations are there for. I think it's important for us to understand that when I mean us, I mean those organizations that works in this particular sector of genocide awareness and Holocaust. As much as we need to let people know what happened to each individual community, but we need to do more to help people understand that this is also about them. It's not just about us and our stories and our histories. It's about the lessons people need to learn from that, so that they can use those lessons to contribute to a better future for themselves and for others. When I established Ishami Foundation, yes, I wanted to make sure that people knows what happened to myself and to my people in Rwanda. But I wanted even more people to take lessons from what happened to us, so that they can help us to contribute to a future that will not bring another genocide in Rwanda, but also not experience a genocide anywhere else in the world. And I think that that's where we haven't probably reached yet. We haven't done much because I don't think people who we go to in the communities, in schools, when we share stories, when we run workshops and things like that, I'm not quite convinced that they see the value of what they take from us for their own benefit. They still see that as something that they are doing for us. You know, someone comes to a remembrance day for Bosnia. If you're not a Bosnian, I think most people who shows up, they feel or think they are there for the Bosnians. Yes, they are there primarily for the Bosnian, but for me, I want also to understand that they are there for themselves. They are there for the humanity. It's about the humanity, it's about the world in general, that we need to stop what happened in Bosnia, what happened in Rwanda, what happened in Germany 75 years ago, happening again anywhere else. I think, yeah, that's where we need to go. That's where we need to be able to achieve. And then that also requires a proper collaboration and cooperation between our organizations and individuals who are very much working in this sector of genocide awareness.
I absolutely agree, and thank you so much, Eric. We do have a really long way to go until we get to that point where we have educated enough people about the lessons of the past. They have come to that understanding of why hateful words and hateful incidents can really demolish an entire society, an entire place, country, a group of
Entire
people.
humanity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the best thing we can do is continue to do the work that we're doing, such as with your excellent foundation. If you haven't followed them already, please do. They are at Ishami Foundation on Twitter, as well as I believe it's ishamifoundation.org.uk is their website, and I
No,
will
.org.
.org. Okay.
www.ishamifoundation.org.
There we go. And I will share links below this video so that you can make sure that you follow their work, learn more about the genocide in Rwanda, join us, stand together with us against hatred, and help us bring a safer and more cohesive world for everyone. As we continue to educate on genocide awareness and inform the general public about the importance of speaking out against hatred, we will continue to have guests on our shows where we discuss separate genocides, various ways that we can make a difference, and how to bring our society together to make an impact in this world. So thank you for tuning in, and please make sure to follow Remembering Srebrenica as well as the Ashami Foundation, and tune in next time. Thank you.